Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Israel Connection. I'm Esti Zenati, and my guest today is Eitan Chitayat. He is a global creative leader and brand builder and a powerful voice and advocacy for Israel and the Jewish people. He is the founder of the Nati branding agency, but he is perhaps best known for launching the viral global movement, I'm That Jew, a video that was seen globally over 10 million times, which he discussed in his impactful TEDx talk. Eitan, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. Nice to be here. Thank you.
So tell us the origin story behind the massive I'm That Jew video. How did it all start?
Sure. Well, actually, quite a while ago, in 2014, there was the Charlie Hebdo attack in Paris, France. And I spoke to a close friend of mine who was living there. And I was here just to check in, see how she was doing. And she was in, like a lot of people, a lot of pain. It was very difficult to process what had just happened. And as you know, in Charlie Hebdo, there was a kosher supermarket that was targeted. And a number of people were murdered. And her family used to go to the little kosher supermarket. And in fact, her father and brother-in-law had been there that morning and nothing happened to them. But I checked in, and what she told me was that she doesn't tell people that she's Israeli ever since she moved to France, or that she's Jewish, and it was out of a fear. And we continued speaking, and after the conversation, I sat down and I wrote a piece of writing. I'm a writer, and it was called I'm That Jew. And what it actually was it was a summation of everything that we are. I'm this type of Jew and that type of Jew, and it just went on for on and on and on and on. And it was actually kind of like, in my own way, it was a letter to her to remind her of who it is that we actually are, and why we should always be keep that at the front of our mind. Because when there's this much, and this was back in 2014, and especially now, the amount of hate that we get, it can really get to you. And so it was kind of like a love letter of sorts to her Jewish identity, and mine, and yours, and anyone else who's watching. So I wrote that, but then when I published it online, there was some reaction to it, and I decided, okay, I'm going to turn this into a short piece. And that's the short piece that I made, which I released around a year later. And it's gotten around 15 million views around the world, but has spawned a much bigger Jewish narrative, proactive voice, which has gotten over 300 million views. And that's all the other work that I've been doing with I'm That Jew, which is the movement that you talked about. But that's the origin story. And what's nice is that the origin of I'm That Jew, the piece of writing, is still 100% aligned with the message today, which is, I am Jewish. I love being Jewish. I'm proud to be Jewish. Being Jewish isn't one thing, it's millions of things. And we get to own all of the things as Jews that it means to us. And that message continues.
Were you surprised by the way it became so viral so quickly?
Yeah, at the time it was unbelievable, because if you think back to that time, not many people were speaking openly, publicly on social media about their identity in such a way. And it was amazing to see it take off. And I think the reason that it took off, look, it's very difficult now because we're in a social media world. But back in the day, people were posting pictures of their pets on Facebook and family trips. And so I actually saw it take off on Facebook by Jewish people and non-Jews, but mainly Jewish people who wanted to say also, I'm that Jew, and just didn't know how to say it. And so it was amazing to see it take off so quickly and so powerfully. And it really was because it resonated with people. And it continues to. It continues to. The message continues to resonate with people because it's it's a statement. It's not a question. It's not an explanation. It's not asbara. It's quite literally like, I'm that Jew.
Right.
And you can ask me anything you want, and I'll answer. But that is my statement to the world.
So how did it become like this whole movement? Because now it's a lot more now that it used to be just, the video.
Well, I continued, Jewish advocacy is not my day job. A lot of
Right.
people now, after October 7th and the 2 years since, think that it is. But actually, I build brands. I have my own branding agency, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever there's been a spike in the fight for our people, whether it's anti-Semitism abroad or here within Israel, I have always, as an adult, spoken up publicly. And on October 7th, as we all know, we were facing a crisis that we had not been faced with in almost 100 years.
Right.
And I just decided on October 7th to stop my branding, put everything pretty much on hold, and give everything I could to speaking to the Jewish people and to strengthen the Jewish people in a time where I feel that it was critical. And so that became the October 7th, from October 7th onward, I got more involved in all sorts of social media platforms, and I started putting out content, whether it's translating that film into animated posters that celebrate the Jewish people,
Mm-hmm.
or literally taking new narratives and representing our humanity in filmed video pieces, or working with a colleague of mine on Mythbusters, or getting out there in front of the diaspora Jewish community, whether it was in America or Australia or Canada or Europe, and to speak what is I'm that Jew, in the face of being accused of all of us being genocide lovers and baby killers and colonialists and apartheid supporters. Our narrative, our voice was being hijacked. And so I'm that Jew was not a counter to that. It was a statement of, this is who I am, and this is what I have to say about myself and my country and all of our people. And so it started evolving into lots more work. And now it's kind of become something that is known in the Jewish world, which I'm very happy about. And I am continuing to grow it because I think it's needed.
It is. And I feel like it's, us taking back our voices, now that people are trying to keep us quiet and keep us down. And that helps us take our voice back, And it was good to see also that you posted, because I've been following you since October 7th. And it was really nice to see the few honorary Jews, those who are not Jewish and supported us, like Aaron Mullen, for example. So it was nice to see that.
Yeah, I think it's very important to, there's I'm that Jew and there's I'm that you. We're not that different. We believe in similar values, and it's important to celebrate the Christians, the Muslims, the Hindus. I mean, anyone who speaks up. I also try and celebrate our allies, because we're in a fight for humanity, and Judeo-Christian values are really at the root of what we need to preserve, I think, and fight for. And that's not to say anything negative at all about Islam. I'm all for all religions, but I'm also for tolerance and certain values that come from our faith, which have penetrated and become the values of the Western world in a strong way. So we should celebrate everyone who supports those values, and that's why I do that. Yeah, we have posters and banners, but I also try and give people things to wear and things to put on coffee mugs so that they can also partake in this celebration of humanity.
How did October 7th impact you personally? What was that like for you? And were you in Israel at the time?
So I wasn't. I was actually in Germany in the countryside without my wife or kids. I was there
Oh,
for a wedding. A friend of mine who was German had a country wedding with a farmhouse and everything.
wow.
And the night before, on Friday, we had been setting up the tent, and it was like an all hands on deck preparation the night before. And then I went to bed, and in the morning I woke up to the news, which was very shocking. It's very hard for people to think back to that time, but everything was a blur.
Yeah.
We all thought that the worst was about to happen, that there was actually a danger, and there was, regarding the state of Israel and its security as a whole in the moment. And my family was back in Israel, and I was surrounded by a bunch of Germans in the countryside, which was also bizarre, specifically
It's so
Germany.
like surreal, like really, really different environment.
Really, yeah, really different. And the amazing thing is, so I think we were all in a state of shock, and all I wanted to do was go home. And the wedding was that morning, and it was the
Oh,
type of
wow.
wedding where it was a traditional German wedding with the suspenders and the shorts and the green and the funny hats, all of that stuff. And the way that the community at the wedding responded was nothing short of beautiful. They all tried to help me. Someone drove me 2.5 hours, and he was meant to be a participant in the wedding. There was a young guy. He drove me to the airport so that I could try and get on a flight. I couldn't do that, so I tried to fly to Turkey so that I could get more flights, because more flights to Israel from Turkey than where I was. And that didn't work. So I ended up flying back to Germany 24 hours later, and then eventually getting on the same flight I had on an El Al flight. It was confusing. It was dark. It was scary. And that is literally in those hours I started documenting my plea for Jewish people to speak up, and for non-Jewish people to speak up, for allies to speak up now because of what was coming. I got to Israel a couple of days later, and I went straight to the recording studio, to an animation studio where I worked around the clock on a film that I made called Star of One, to try and help unite the Jewish people, which came out a month later. And usually something like that takes 3 to 5 months to make. So it was, it's all a blur. Getting out of Germany, Turkey, coming back, seeing my family, hugging them, and then disappearing into very, very, very intense advocacy work. That was my experience. And it literally, maybe a month ago, started to come down a little for me.
Yeah, I
since the
think for all of
hostages were
us.
released.
Yeah, I think for all of us, like having the hostages released. I mean, unfortunately, we still have 3 in Gaza currently. But the remaining living hostages, seeing them out there, that was very therapeutic for all of us after these past couple of years that have been very hectic. Was there anything that surprised you in the way people reacted to your content since October 7th?
It's interesting. As someone who's been in the fight for well over a decade publicly, with a lot of creatives that a lot of people aren't familiar with, because my audience was Facebook. I didn't know how people would react outside of Facebook. Facebook was, I have my own page. It's it's words by Eitan Chitayat. And I probably had around 16,000 followers, and maybe 1,000 on Instagram, and 2,000 or 3,000 on LinkedIn. I wasn't sure how people would react. but I decided to really go hard on all the platforms because I felt it's needed to, we need to put our voice out
Yeah.
there. And I think about for 15 years, you're fighting the fight, and not as many people as you would like are seeing it, even though you know it's really important. And then
Right.
suddenly on October 7th, not only are people seeing your work, and now I've got almost 250,000 followers on different platforms, but a lot of other people started to voice their identity and fight the good fight. I think with my work specifically, what I've been trying to do is create something that's bigger than me, to create a place where all Jews are included. So I'm that Jew is for the Sfaradim, for the Ashkenazim, for the Israelis, for the South Africans and Argentinian Jews. It's for the religious Jews, the secular Jews, the modern Orthodox Jews. It's for the straight Jews, the gay Jews. It's for the people on the left and the people on the right. It's, if you're Jewish, I'm that Jew. And I haven't really seen that being built with that in mind by anyone, by any entity. And I think that that's the people that my work resonates with. I think it's because it's inclusive, because it's inherently tries to be optimistic. It's rooted deep in Jewish values, even though I'm not religious. I try not to divide. And I'm not in it to be an influencer. I don't like that, world, but you need to be there. So what surprised me was how quickly it took off and how wonderfully it has been embraced. It also has surprised me, like the apathy of the Jewish people, especially in terms of leadership. And I've spoken about this at the organizational level, at the political level, how these types of things are not being proactively embraced by leadership there. Even if it's working, it's a real uphill struggle. So I think one of the things about my work that surprised me is how wonderfully it was embraced by the people, but not by institutions who could very easily leverage the message and jump onto it and help build it. That also surprised me and still surprises me, to be honest with you. And I think that that's one of the biggest challenges, is that new leadership, especially in terms of narrative, and the voice of the Jewish people and the branding of the Jewish people and Israel as a collective, that needs to be taken very, very seriously. And that's something that has surprised me in the negative regarding the work.
I think one of the things that like big organizations and I don't know government, but like organizations miss is that there's no cohesiveness in the messaging that comes out. Everybody has their own thing, and it should not be like this, because I think at the end of the day, we all of us have the same goal. So that's like one of the big things that we're missing. And I think you probably, as a brand builder, and you come from that world, you understand that more than some other people.
Well, I think that there's a place, we're not all the same. We are different. And I think that that's the Jewish people. We're a race, an ethnicity, a culture, a religion. We're in Israel. We're all over the world. We're black. We're white. We're so many different things. The Jewish people are one people, but we're very diverse. So if we know that already, we need to be able to build that and represent ourselves in an honest way, in an inclusive way, and put that out there to the world. And I think that diversity is actually, well, how can I, for example, how can I'm that Jew, everyone's doing their own thing. I think that's true. And I think that that's important. And we should all continue to be the individuals that we are. But we also need a collective identity that it is needed to have that you can amplify that collective identity. Israel, the brand, is not the answer right now, because unfortunately, it's a very toxic brand because of what people have done to the brand of Israel. That could very easily happen to the Jewish people unless we unite around the narrative. And the narrative doesn't need to be a dogmatic, I'm a Jew, I'm the same as everyone. On the contrary, I'm the Jew and I'm different to all the other Jews, but I'm still Jewish. And that's a beautiful thing. You can build a movement around that because it's true. And what's true is powerful. It's also quite simple, what I'm saying. So it's important to have your own voice, but it's also important to create a space where lots of different voices can be in that one space and show that they are that. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're not the same, obviously. We have different opinions, different, worldviews and all these things. But I think the core of us, of our people, is that we are the Jewish people.
Yes.
And we have to figure out something that will put us all collectively in that umbrella of the Jewish people, because this is what we are. So we have to figure out how to contribute to that rather than take away from that.
And I think that and we're in the world of there's the world of just being and doing and all of us living our lives, but then there's the world of communication and the world of shaping perception around truth and not succumbing to the shaping of the perception by our enemies that creates a lie. So what's happened with our narrative, and I've spoken about this quite a lot, as you probably know, is that our narrative, specifically of Israel for sure, but also of the Jewish people, has been taken over by enemies, by quite literally haters. And there has been, let alone a counter narrative, there has not been a proactive narrative. And that is the thing that needs to be taken very, very seriously, specifically with narrative, because when we look at the enemies of the Jewish people, the way that they have been winning the PR war is exactly that. It's narrative based. It's using creativity, a lot of lies also, but they're proactive, and it's a message that they are pushing all the time. We haven't been. I'm telling you that there's 2 years of since October 7th, but there's 15 years of work where I've personally seen that nothing in terms of narrative, close to nothing, is being done. And that's not a knock at any organization or anyone in leadership who's trying. It's just not working because we're not taking it seriously enough. I can tell you that meeting with influential people, funding, all of these things are very, very challenging in a time of crisis. So you can imagine in a time where things calm down, how much more difficult it's going to be. And that is the big change that we need to see in the Jewish world around narrative specifically.
So how do we approach the younger generation? They see all those things on social media, all the lies, because there's a lot of lies out there that people buy into from the other side. And we try to hit them with the facts, with the truth, and they just don't acknowledge it. They believe the lies rather than the truth. How do we do that and get to them with the truth?
I think that it's a multi-pronged approach. I believe that the Jewish people over the past 30 years around the world much of the Jewish people have assimilated in a way that is not conducive to their own Jewish identity. And that starts at home, and that starts in the community. And of course not everyone, but a large amount of people. So when people say we're losing Jewish people to the propaganda, the reason that we're losing people to the propaganda is that their identity has not been front and center. And that has got nothing to do with social media. That is just over the course of decades, if you don't instill a sense of Jewish identity, and whatever that Jewish identity is, then when there's a crisis and people are demonizing the Jewish people or demonizing Israel, and you don't have a connection to Israel because it was never made a priority, or being Jewish, whether you're religious or not, but just that identity that you have, if that's not made in the family and in the community as something important, then there's a bigger chance of you losing them down the road. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you have to nurture your identity with communications. You have to, as a community, feed your community with making them sure that they know who they are and where they come from. And so in this day, in a post-October 7th world, a lot of the Jewish people who have turned their backs on their Jewish identity or on Israel, I don't think that there's much that we can do about that right now. I think we have to think long-term and short-term. Long-term is make sure our children are instilled with a sense of I don't want to say pride, I want to say Jewish identity, and it belongs to them, that they own it, that they know who they are, they know where their family comes from, they know their heritage, they know their traditions, they know their customs, they know their festivals, they know their values. And that needs to be made a priority for the long run. And in tandem, you've got to strengthen Jewish people who identify with their story and how to be more vocal about their story, not on social media, but in the real world. And we also need to start addressing the intolerance amongst us, the lack of solidarity amongst us, the fact that there's, especially now in the last couple of days, I don't know when the podcast will air. Yeah, like, so there's this whole, well, the Ashkenazis get all the love, and the Sephardim Jews don't get anything. There's people who don't know anything outside of their own little Jewish bubble within the Jewish world.
Right.
So I'm That Jew is as much about educating people who are not Jewish about who we are as it is about educating ourselves about who we are.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you that until I went to Australia, and I had 25 speaking events with Australian Jews to try and strengthen them in a time where they needed it, I didn't know much about Australian Jewry. I don't know much about Mexican Jewry.
Right.
I didn't know much about Canadian Jewry. I didn't know that in Iran, the Persian Jewish community is very much to themselves, and the Ashkenazi Jewish community is not really a part of that. They don't like kind of, so we need to also address that. So there are many different things to address. Education at home, continuing to articulate in an ongoing conversation, in a forever conversation, what it means to be Jewish, and to build bridges within our Jewish communities that will strengthen us. When you're able to do those things, then I think that we'll start, and it's a long play, it will take a long time, then you'll start to see Jewish people speaking up, showing who they are, being more educated about who they are, being more aligned with each other. We can agree to disagree, but we're all Jewish. And then we'll start to see also more strength from our allies, because that message will not be left to 10% of the Jewish population, but you'll have more brand ambassadors of the Jewish people speaking up and affecting real change. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. I mean, and I have seen what's going on in the past few days, which I kind of was like, as a Sephardi Jew, like my family is from Morocco, and I grew up around Yemenites, Ashkenazi, Iraqi, like everything, all the mix of Jews from everywhere. And like, there's always place for everybody. There's no need to fight over who gets what. I think it is important to amplify voices from different communities.
Sure.
But there's room for everyone. There's no need to be offended by somebody else getting, because he's Ashkenaz. There's no, like, it made me kind of laugh in a way to see that, but like, then, it's nothing new.
it's nothing new, and I think that that's something that you see. Excuse me. It's something that you've seen over the course of years, but because now Jewish social media, you need to nurture tolerance,
Okay.
tolerance within our community, which is why, as you probably know, Shai and I, Shai
Yeah.
Davidai and I, we're friends online and offline, but he's a great example of someone, even though we might differ politically, we might differ with our approach to things, he's trying to create an inclusive space where you're Jewish, let's talk about it. And I think that's what we need. We need to get to know each other better, and we need to be more tolerant.
Hmm.
And the divisiveness within the Jewish people is, to me, tragic, unnecessary, and detrimental. And in our history books, we know about when the Jewish
Yeah.
people are divided, catastrophe has struck, and we saw it in Israel before October 7th with the judicial reforms, and we see it with the deep, deep, deep division within the Israeli left and the Israeli right. But we also see it now. There's a deep, deep division between the Democratic and Republican Jewish
Yeah.
members, and we also see a massive um, kind of tear between Israel and the diaspora. No one likes to talk about that, but this silver lining post October 7th of Jewish people getting to know each other is critical for us to build bridges between the diaspora and Israel, and specifically so that Israelis will better understand what's going on with the Jewish people outside of Israel, as opposed to the opposite only.
Yeah.
Um, the diaspora has shown up for Israel these past 2 years in a big way. And I think that Israelis need to become better informed and more aware of what Jewish people in the diaspora are going through. And that requires dialogue and building bridges. But
Yeah,
an
that's true.
Israeli is I met Jew too, so
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I working in the Jewish community outside of Israel is obviously opened my eyes, because before I started working here, I did not know all of these things. As Israelis, I feel like Israelis are in their own bubble, and they have their own fights, their own mess going on. Because Israel is always there's always a lot going on in Israel.
yes, we
Um,
have a lot going on here.
yeah, so you don't always think about what's outside. You don't look at that as I don't look at important, but like you don't look at it as a factor in what's going on in Israel. And I think now working and being on both sides, I feel like there's a lot of like there. I mean, the diaspora Jewry is a factor in what's going on in Israel, and I think after October 7th, they got closer to Israel in a way, but there's still a gap, and that we
Yeah,
need to fill it.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that it's not an excuse anymore. I'm not saying this to you.
Yeah,
I'm saying, I've worked in branding for, almost 30 years, and I've worked with Jewish organizations. Like, we delivered the brand for the Jewish Agency for Israel and Israel Aid and all sorts of organizations. And so the gap between Israel and the diaspora was much bigger before October 7th. So there's an opportunity here. There's an
hmm,
opportunity by leadership in Israel and abroad to capitalize on this devastation and destruction and to make something good out of it. And that is bring our people closer. Israel, people need to get to know Israel, and not Israel in a time of war. Israel is your home. And we, as Israelis, cannot look at the people, our family, who has
hmm,
helped us get through this tragedy, and and kind of and of course, I know that this isn't the case. I'm not saying people shrug their shoulders, but at an institutional level, we need to educate Israelis that these people abroad are Jewish, and you have a lot in common with them, and we are family, and they showed up for us. The very least that we could do is show up for them, at least in understanding.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's a correction that we need to make. We have no more excuses. Someone just needs to say, okay, well, this is the problem. We're talking about it. What do we do about it? How do we build that? And I think that there are lots of organizations doing incredible things to build bridges. But the organizations need to work more closely together. There needs to be more glue, more synergy. There needs to be, again, coming back to something that unifies us all. And we don't have any excuses because we're aware of it now.
Yep.
Everyone is, not just people who've been fighting the fight for 15 years or 30 years, or people in the, we're all aware now. So we all need to do something now.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I see more, I guess, individuals from Israel trying to bridge the gap and connect to, diaspora Jewry. But we have a long way to go still.
Yes, we do. And we'll get there. I really do think so. But I think the community, the people, need to pressure programs, leaders, institutions, communities, grassroots into continuing that as a way of life, and not with tragedy, but with positivity, with optimism, with bridge building. We need to.
I think one of the things that make it more noticeable is like when American Jews or Jews from everywhere outside of Israel go to Israel, especially during these past couple of years, they always come back with like, oh my God, all the Israelis that saw me, they thanked me for coming. Because I feel like Israelis were surprised that people, from around the world showed up and supported Israel during the war. So I think that opened up people's eyes for sure.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I can tell you that the day before yesterday, I met a friend from Australia. She was here visiting, and I went with her and my wife and her husband, and we went to a coffee shop. And we were in the coffee shop, and we were standing in line, and she made it a point to buy the two soldiers something to eat. And I was just like standing there, just like, oh my God. And she's like, I want to help them. So that is exactly what the Jewish people around the world did for Israel for the most part. And Israelis saw it. I just hope that kind of continues, kind of like that example of not just us helping, not them helping us, but us at the very least being aware and learning about Jewish communities abroad, and that it continues at a more organized level. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there are many programs that do wonderful things, like Birthright, Taglit. There's some phenomenal programs. It needs to continue and get bigger, and more people need to get involved, and definitely around narrative, because narrative and people sharing their stories is actually what leads to people coming to Israel, or Israelis becoming pen pals with people on social media, with certain people who are abroad, to continue to talk and to do more together.
Yeah. One of the videos you made that really touched me personally, I feel it's Hey Jewish Kid. My daughter watched it, and I commented on the video. She cried because for her, like especially after October 7th, one of the main questions she asked me was, why do they hate us? Why do people hate us so much? What did we do to them? And obviously there's no answer to this, because I mean, honestly, I don't think that the haters know why they hate us. And that made her feel something. It made her feel seen. And I really appreciated that video. How do you think, with your experience, what is the best way for Jewish parents to instill safety and pride in their kids, and to for them to know that it's okay to be Jewish? Like, you're Jewish, be proud of who you are, own it, and don't be afraid to live as a Jewish kid and then adult later on.
Well, first of all, thank you. The piece is, that's the one where I'm wearing a pink shirt, Dear Jewish Children. First of all, it just means a lot that you said that. So thank you. It makes all of the work that I'm doing worthwhile to hear something like that. And that is a piece that I co-wrote with someone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what you just said is, so you said something very specific, which was like, I think you said something like she felt seen.
Yeah.
And to not be seen is deeply traumatic. If you are not seen or heard, I think it's one of the worst kinds of abuse there is.
Right.
And so the reason why I wanted to make that piece was to show Jewish children that we see them and that we collectively have been here before. And maybe even as parents and grandparents, we've been here before and we will get through this. We see your pain, we see your suffering, and we're all in it together. So I think that that's a certain type of openness. And I think that specifically with children, look, it's a very tricky thing to answer because I don't believe in telling people what to do.
Right.
I mean, I do that sometimes, like everyone does, but I know that you should do this or you should do that. It's a difficult thing to say. I do feel that we need to, as parents and as schools abroad and campus, Jewish organizations on campus, and maybe Jewish advocacy groups within the workplace, wherever they are,
Mm-hmm.
socially, I think that we, the adults, need to lead by example.
Right.
We cannot tell our children to be proud and to be openly Jewish, which I think is important, scary as it is, if the parents are doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not judging anyone. I know it's hard, but children need to be shown, not told, what to do.
Yeah.
There's one example that I use, and I get in trouble for this sometimes, but I say it anyway because I think it's a good example. When I was in Canada over a year ago, and I went to Montreal to try and strengthen the community, and we'd heard that there would be a Palestinian walkout at Concordia University, which is the epicenter of antisemitism in Canada. That there's going to be a walkout. What does that mean? That at some stage, anyone who is down with the pro-Palestine movement literally gets up from their classroom, leaves, goes downstairs. It's a walkout, and then they go and they do some type of demonstration. So I said, okay, let's go. We know it's going to happen. Let's go. And when I got there, Esti, I was quite shocked because there were a handful of Jewish Israeli students. I'd say like 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I had turned up with maybe 5 people. And the pro-Palestinian walkout was in the hundreds.
Oh, wow.
300 to 400 people. And I looked around and I was like, where's the Jewish community? Why am I here? Why am I from Israel here? And everyone knows, but they're not here showing up. So it's kind of like that. We need to show up more. And we need to, if we're going to tell our children that it's okay to be Jewish, then we should speak openly about the fact that we're Jewish. We should wear things that show that we're Jewish. We should be able to talk about it at work. We should be able to say, hey, where are you going this summer? And not say, oh, I'm not sure yet. Oh, I'm going to Israel. Just say it.
Right.
If we don't lead by example, specifically with that as adults, then our children are going to continue to suffer. And no one is saying it's easy. No one is saying it's comfortable. No one is saying, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. But it's necessary. And I think that is key. And also, of course, Jewish education,
Yes.
Jewish values, literature, courses, Shabbat meals, celebrating the festivals, even if you're not religious, going to Israel, telling your friends who are not Jewish about it, all of these things, we need to, as adults, show that we are doing those things. Otherwise, we can't expect our children to, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So given the incredible reach and impact of I'm That Jew, and your continued activism and advocacy for Israel, is there anything like a follow-up project that you have coming up that continues that conversation about Jewish identity and Israel or anti-Semitism?
Well, first of all, there are a few things. I mean, I would love people to come to imthatjew.com, and I hope that you share that
Yes,
so that they can see what's going on. And there's also a donation page. Funds are needed to make all the stuff that I make. It doesn't come out of nowhere. So you'll see also an incredible body of work that is continuing. One of the things that I am doing right now is I'm working with Einat Wilf on a project together, which is about Israel and Zionism.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very big project. And another project is to absolutely continue all of the things that I've been doing, whether it's spoken narrative pieces or breaking myths with Ellie, or continuing with I'm That Jew posters, also speaking events, and potentially working on some I'm That Jew workshops, and other films that I have already started working on, but I'm in the process of fundraising. And the fundraising is something that I've discovered as an entrepreneur coming from outside the Jewish organization advocacy space. The fundraising is very important, and I'm trying to raise funds to continue with some serious things, like I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I always have lots of ideas. I mean, that's what I do. I'm a creative.
Yes.
I'm Israeli, but I've lived abroad. I've got around 30 years of experience of brand building under my belt, and I've got that passion. So all of those things together created a kind of like a perfect storm of sorts of Jewish advocacy, but it requires people getting behind it so that I can make those things. And I plan on doing more, much more. I just need to continue putting it out there that I do need the support to do it, because people are embracing it and they need it and they want it. And I think it's critical, and it's working.
Yeah, and you do some great work. So I hope more
Thank you.
people get exposed to it and, and listen to what you have to say. I think it's important.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope people follow me through your podcast.
I hope so. Yeah, we'll definitely add the link to the website and
Thank you.
your handle on social media so they will find you. What is your, lastly, what is your message to those out there who are not so sure about their Judaism, or maybe scared to be Jewish in public or just in general?
I would say that when it comes to where you come from, that's something that is undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of hopefully your parents and your grandparents and so on and so forth. And it's not just, being Jewish is not just religion. Being Jewish is not just Israel. Being Jewish is education. Being Jewish is a work ethic. Being Jewish is a way of life. And there are so many different ways of life. Being Jewish is tradition. Being Jewish is rooted in positive values. And when you don't know any of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's something that might not be your fault, but you have an opportunity to learn about these things from other Jewish people. And the thing that is very, very difficult is to watch very prominent Jewish activists who either hate on Israel or hate on things that are really not happening because they're not listening to the narrative from the right people. And that's not to say that Jewish people are perfect. We're not.
No.
But to people who do not know what being Jewish is, I would suggest learning about it. I would suggest learning about it not from people who you might be used to. Maybe follow some people that are Jewish that you don't agree with. Maybe follow some people who are Jewish or get to know Jewish people who don't have your exact background offline. Maybe learn about Israel and learn about the people in Israel. If you are against the politics of Israel for whatever reason, learn about the people in this country who are, like any country, also against certain policies in this
Right.
country. Like an American would be, you know,
Yeah,
whether
anywhere.
you're a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter, or in England, we have that too. But you don't demonize an entire people, race, heritage, culture, country based on what other people are saying. You have to get to know who you are and know your collective identity as well. And that's what I feel is what I'm That Jew is trying to do. It's providing a voice for individuals to be able to own their own Jewish identity based on real Jewish values and listening to other people where everyone has a space. Even the haters, they're Jewish. A lot of them are Jewish. They have a seat at the table. Maybe it's not the right time to engage right now,
Right.
but these are our people. We need to get to know each other better, and we need the world to get to know us better. That will only happen when more Jewish people start owning their own identity and learning more about it, which is, I think, a lot of that has been happening. A lot of Jewish people have woken up to their Jewish identities,
Yeah.
but they've got to remember that October 7th doesn't define the Jewish people. It's a part of Jewish history, and it's a tragic part of Jewish history. What defines the Jewish people is your Jewish identity. And that is not up for debate, and you can learn about that. Wish people would learn about it more and then teach their children.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I hope more people open their eyes and realize that there's a lot more to it than they think or we're taught. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. We're a small, tiny little people, but there's a lot. We have a huge, big story that, goes on for thousands of years, and there's a lot to learn.
I think we have one of the biggest stories in the world, and
Yeah.
one of the most successful stories in the world, and one of the stories with the most longevity. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up. Longevity in the world, and it's something to be very, very proud of. And it's our identity. Let's wear it. Let's wear it for all to see.
Yes, and we don't need a tragedy to happen for us to be
No.
proud and do all that stuff.
No, we don't. I mean, we don't. We don't need a tragedy. We need our voice. That's what we need. That's
Yes,
it.
that's true. Well, Eitan, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I hope you keep doing great things and people will keep following and listening to what you have to say.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for what you're doing as well. And just keep
I hope
fighting the
I
good
get
fight.
to more people.
Listen, it's you heard what I said at the beginning. It starts small, but you put in the work and you're consistent and with passion and with the right motivation. I think that we can all do more. So kol hakavod to you, and I hope more people do more as well.
Thank you, and thank you all for listening. Until next time.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Esti.